Hi, my name is Indrakshi. Recently, my Pinterest feed has been showing me this picture again and again. It goes, the moment you are disturbed by insult or pleased by praise, you're still a slave, which made me circle back to a video of mine about emotional intelligence. Now, what I want to point out is that it has more to do with stoicism. This quote has more to do with stoicism as it has than it has to do with emotional intelligence. But for me, when I saw this picture, I circled back to my own video. You can watch it if you want to. It's in the description. I've linked it in the description. So what I was talking about in that video was what is the difference between a feeling and an emotion, how you can deal with your emotions, because you clearly can't deal with your feelings. Why? I'll tell you that as we move forward into the video. So I drew a distinction between feelings and emotion. Then I talked about an emotional intelligence matrix which showed you what emotional intelligence looks like, and I think it was to make it easier for the audience to understand what emotional intelligence entails. Now, after a year, after having consumed a lot of content about emotional intelligence, because clearly that's how the algorithm works, the moment I posted that video, my entire feed sort of for a few days turned into a collage of emotional intelligence content. And I learned a lot of things, and I also realized that what I did in the previous video, the distinction that I created, was really vague, and I want to give it structure in this video. And right now I'm not going to tell you that okay, stop reacting to anything, or or become spontaneous. We're going to choose a middle ground instead. I'm going to talk about emotional composure. So before that, I would once again explain what feeling and emotion is, what is the difference between them. Then we will talk about a model by James Gross. It's a process model about emotional intelligence itself, emotional regulation essentially. And so that's what we are going to be talking about in this video. That is the agenda. Now, a feeling, let's start with feeling and emotion. A feeling is the internal experience that roots from any event that occurs externally in front of you. Let's say you're walking on a road and you see an accident happening in front of you real time. You're not a first person, you're not experiencing that accident in the first person perspective, but you still feel bad for whoever has gotten hurt. So this bad feeling, even you're not going to do anything about it. The most you can do is you can call an ambulance. But let's say somebody has already done all that and you're just experiencing it as an invisible person. You're experiencing that the view of that accident. You're watching it happen in front of you. You are going to feel bad. What you're going to do has nothing to do with what we're discussing right now. We're only going to talk about what you are feeling. So you feel bad you feel bad for the person who's met the accident, and there's nothing you can change about what you're feeling. So a feeling is something that you can't change. I get a bad grade on a test, I feel bad, that I can't change anything about it. I'm going to feel bad regardless of whether my mom is going to scold me at home or not, regardless of whether my dad is going to scold me or not, regardless of whether my class is going to humiliate me or not. So I feel bad no matter what the circumstances are. That's a feeling. I'll feel bad. But let's say let's say I just throw a tantrum over my bad grade. I just go to the teacher and say that hey, it's simply not possible. I wrote everything. I am exceptional at this subject. There's no way I'm scoring that bad at a subject like this. So I think that's something that I could have controlled, or something that I could have controlled had I looked at it with some other perspective. So that's for later. Right now we're focusing on feeling. So feeling is something that you're not able to change, something that is not in your control. Next, we talk about the emotion. So yesterday I was sitting and trying to make sense of how I was going to explain the emotion part of this topic. So I came up with a model. It's a model that I created myself. I call it the PIPE model. PIPE is an acronym for 4 terms. So I like to think of an emotion like a building. It is a building and it has 4 pillars. PIPE. P stands for perception, I stands for interpretation, P stands for physiology, the second P, and E stands for environment. So perception is the first hand experience of an event. You use your five senses and you experience the event as it is. You see it passively. You see everything that's happening. You commit all the details to your memory. That's your perception. That's your first pillar. You can't change anything about it. This is solely dependent on what happens externally, is because that's all you're going to commit to your memory. Second pillar is interpretation. Interpretation is where you assign meaning to the event. Let's say I got a bad grade and I can create two interpretations out of this situation. Either I blame the teacher that they didn't teach well, or that this subject is perhaps difficult, or because there's no way I can't score well at a subject like this, or I take it as an opportunity to improve myself and study the subject more and score better the next time. So this is interpretation. Interpretation is what kind of meaning you're assigning to the event. Third, we have physiology. Physiology here, it involves slight biology. It's not going to be tough, it's really easy, but we're going to look at it properly. So here I will give you two examples. There are two girls, Isha and Amisha. Both of these, they're best friends. They are both equally intelligent. Their competence in communication and language and knowledge, quick wit, everything is the same. Let's say they've spent a lot of time together, and as a result they have become similar in their competence level. Now both of these girls, Isha, what Isha does is every weekend she goes to a public speaking club, where there's a segment where an in charge will give you a random topic on the stage, and Isha is supposed to give an impromptu speech for a minute or two. So she'll go onto the stage, she'll get a topic, the in charge will provide her with a topic, and she will talk about that topic for a minute or two. So these are really easy topics. You don't need exceptional knowledge for them. These are normal topics that you have to talk about for a minute or two. So one weekend, Isha asks Amisha to join her, that Amisha, come on, let's go to that club. You are going to learn new things. It's going to be fun for you. It's a thrilling experience because you are giving an impromptu speech. So Amisha agrees, and there when she goes, Isha goes onto the stage, she takes a topic, she talks, and she comes back. And there's an audience, by the way. That club meeting has an audience, right? Everybody is listening to Isha or anybody who's talking on the stage. Next, it's Amisha's turn. But Amisha suddenly bails out. She says, hey, I can't do it. I think I'll do it next time. I'm not going to do it this weekend. Next time I come, I'll try my best to go and give a speech, because right now I'm not ready. I don't feel ready. So to which Isha says that, hey, come on, you'll do great. I know you'll do great. I'm sure you are great at like talking about impromptu topics or anything, because they've had several conversations, and Isha thinks that Amisha has enough knowledge to carry out a 1 to 2 minute speech about an easy topic. But still Amisha insists that she don't go. So she doesn't go. The reason she didn't go was, despite their similar competencies, was because the physiology of both of these girls, Isha's physiology and Amisha's physiology, was different. Isha's brain decoded it in the sense that, hey, I've done it before, I've gone to the stage multiple times. Even if I get stuck, even if I use bad grammar, or even if I don't know what to speak next, nothing happens. Nobody is going to attack me, nobody is going to laugh at me, nobody is going to humiliate me, right? But Amisha's physiology says that, hey, if I go and if I get stuck, people are going to make fun of me. I will feel humiliated. And even if nobody outrightly makes fun of me, it still feels like humiliation when you're standing on a stage, there's an audience sitting in anticipation that you'll talk, and you simply can't get the words out. You're standing there, you're frozen, and that feels like humiliation. So historically, right now, humiliation, what is humiliation essentially? Humiliation is social rejection, right? So when humiliation happens, we feel socially rejected. That's what happens. So historically, social rejection was a threat to one's survival, because back then in jungles, even now we live in societies, right? We live in groups, we live in joint families, we live in societies, we live in colonies, we have entire cities. based, cities based at the, like, in a confined zones. We don't live like too far from each other, so we have a societal structure. So social rejection feels like survival threat, because back in the day when you're in a jungle and if you were in a group, you were safe. Everybody was helping each other out, everybody was protecting you, the society was protecting you. But the moment you're left alone in the jungle, a random wild animal is going to come and maul you, it's going to kill you. So that's survival threat. So for that reason, humans tried their best to remain in closed, bounded societal structures. They tried to remain in society in groups. But here Amisha, even if she's not being attacked by a wild animal, her primitive mind says that, hey, if you're going to get socially rejected, it might cause a threat to your survival. What if somebody attacks you? And Amisha knows that none of this is going to happen, but that's how biology works. Biology is trying to save you. So Amisha, she suddenly, her heartbeat increases, her palms start sweating, she suddenly feels really anxious, and she feels that I can't do this, right? Because this is a survival threat to her. So she doesn't go, and she decides that, okay, I'm not going to go. So both these girls, who are almost similar in their competency, and by similar I don't mean that there's a mild difference between their competency in the sense that Isha is better or Amisha is better. Let's say they're both totally equal, but still they have shown different responses to this whole situation of going onto the stage and giving an impromptu speech. Amisha doesn't go because Amisha feels anxious. Her adrenaline has started rushing. She suddenly feels as if her flight-fight response has activated. Now what happens biologically here is there's a part of the brain called amygdala, which has to do with everything related to flight and fight response. So in case of Isha, her amygdala doesn't fire strongly because she's experienced this before. She's gone onto the stage before, she's given a speech before. Initially when she did give the speech for the first time, she had the same reaction as Amisha, but gradually, after repetitive exposure to the same kind of environment, Isha's amygdala got numb to that stimuli. Her amygdala no longer responds to this stimuli because she's experienced it multiple times. So her brain goes that, okay, she's going to go to the stage and she's going to talk. We've done this before. We don't have to worry. She can go and come back. Nothing wrong will happen. Nobody's going to attack her. This is not a survival threat. The brain ignores this stimuli and she does whatever she wants. In case of Amisha, since she's not done this before, her brain goes, okay, this is new territory. We've never experienced this before. I think this might be a survival threat. So Amisha starts feeling anxious. There's an adrenaline rush. She suddenly starts sweating, shivering, and whatnot. So Amisha decides against going onto the stage and talking. So these are two people who are similar, and yet they have shown different responses to the same event. So this is what physiology is about. For the same event, physiology can give two different responses. Isha and Amisha were both in the same situation, and yet they responded in different ways. Next we have E for environment. Now environment is something that we can't change, but we will study it nevertheless. Environment is what kind of people you are dealing with, what kind of setting you are in. Let's say your mom asks you to do the dishes, and then there's your professor asks you to submit an assignment within the next 1 hour. Which of these activities are you going to do first? Obviously the assignment given by the professor. Why? Because the professor for the professor it's a formal setting. It can cause harm to your grade if you don't submit the assignment in time. So you're responding it in two different ways to the same kind of situation depending on the environment. Now your mom, if your mom is going to ask you to do the dishes, you might postpone it and say that, okay, I'll do it after some time, don't worry, wait, I'm busy doing something, I'll do it later. But in the case of the professor, you're not going to say that, hey, I can't do it right now, I'm busy, I'll do it later. You can't do that because that's your professor, that's a formal setting, and you have to submit this assignment because it's important for your grade. So this is the environment. You are being asked to do something in a deadline, but since these are two different settings, one is at home and one is at your place of study, one is your educational institution, your response changes. So this is how environment changes what kind of response you are giving. Now that we have understood the 4 factors on which an emotion depends, we try to make sense of what we can change to change an emotion. So there are 4 variables: perception, interpretation, physiology and environment. And if we intervene into one of these 4 variables, we can change the emotion. We can change the way in which the feeling manifests itself into an emotion. So first we will try to look into perception. Can we change the perception? We can't change the perception because we are not messing with it at all to begin with. We are just absorbing everything. So the way in which you absorb, you can't change anything about it because you're experiencing that event and that's all you're going to see it for. Second variable is interpretation. This is what we can change. Again, physiology, we can't change anything about it because this is biology and biology is natural, so we can't change anything about it. And the fourth variable is environment. Environment, you can't control the environment, you can't change the environment. So let's move back to the second variable, interpretation. How we will change our interpretation. For this, I would like to introduce you to a model by a psychologist named James Gross. It's called the emotional regulation method, in which we talk about another 4 variables. So it's actually a chain of 4 links. These 4 links, they help you understand how you can regulate your emotions, because we're talking about emotional composure, right? So emotional composure is not something that you do firsthand. It comes about because of something else, and that something else is emotional regulation. And to regulate your emotions, we study the 4 links that James Gross talks about. The first link is situation. Situation is anything that's happening, the event, you experience an event, that's situation, right? Second one is attention. Now here you decide what you are going to pay attention to. When you are called upon onto a stage to give an impromptu speech, what are you going to focus on? The fact that you might be humiliated, or the fact that you're getting an opportunity to talk, or the fact that you have no knowledge about a topic whatsoever, or the fact that once you are done with the speech, you will feel better about yourself because you've overcome a fear of public speaking. What are you going to pay attention on is what makes or breaks the deal. So for me, when I was learning public speaking, I thought that okay, when I'm done with this action, when I'm done with this task of speaking on the stage, I will feel better about myself, I will become better at public speaking. So I paid attention to that. And let's say you get a bad grade. Let's say I get a bad grade, and instead of saying that there's no way I am scoring that better at a subject like this, if I try to focus on the scope of improvement, I can become a better student, right? So that's where attention plays a role. Here you decide what you're going to pay attention to, and make sure it's something productive, it's something that actually makes a positive impact onto the whole situation, right? So this was the second link of the chain that James Gross talks about. The third link is appraisal. Appraisal is where you assign meaning to the situation. We assign meaning to everything around us, right? What is meaning? Meaning is essentially a story. We attach a story to everything around us so that we can experience it in a better way, right? So let's say I scored, again the same example, I scored bad at a test. I decided to focus on what I can improve. Now I'm trying to assign a meaning to this hard work of mine that I'm going to put in when I'm trying to improve my subject, right? Let's say it's physics. So in physics, let's say I'm struggling with kinematics and I want to improve my kinematics. So here I try to assign a meaning that, all right, if I work hard on this topic, I will get better at physics. I will be able to understand how planes fly easily, how cars are driven easily. I'll be able to like understand all of that stuff, and it makes me feel good to be able to understand what's going on around me. I'll be able to understand the nature better. I'll feel better about myself. I will the way in which I think, how I weigh different situations will get better. My observation will get better if I study kinematics, if I improve my kinematics. So here I assigned a meaning to this hard work of mine, because hard work without meaning feels like labor. It feels horrible. So meaning can also be a goal, end goal. So when I was working hard for kinematics, when I was studying physics, I assigned a meaning, I assigned a story to the topic, so that I can so that I can feel that my hard work is justified, right? Because unjustified labor doesn't feel good, and I want it to feel good, because that's how I'm going to be able to work hard. That's the motivation that is causing me to work, right? So I assigned a good meaning to whatever it is that I have been paying attention to. The fourth one is response. This is where you have to be very mindful, because often we end up like reacting. You're not supposed to react, you're supposed to respond. We have heard this multiple times. Many people say it, many motivational speakers talk about it, that respond, don't react and whatnot. But here's what the distinction between a reaction and a response is. A reaction is concerned mainly with that situation itself and not the consequences. In the case of a reaction, let's say I reacted for getting a bad grade. I reacted that okay, I can't, there's no way I'm scoring so bad at this subject, XYZ, all that bullshit. And then at the end I decide that I'm not going to work hard because I'm already good at this subject and there's nothing wrong with me. Here, when I go and sit for the test again, the next time I give the test for the same subject, I'm not going to be able to understand anything, because I didn't put in the hard work, because I didn't respond to the situation. I reacted out of spite, that how could you give me a bad grade because I worked hard, right? So that came from a place of spite. So reaction more often than not comes from the place of spite, comes from the place of feeling helpless because something has unfolded in front of you that makes you feel out of control. Response, on the other hand, is slightly delayed. You give it a thought, you think for some time, you weigh down all the consequences, you decide what you want to do, you think of all the consequences. So in the case of a test, let's say I got a bad grade, right? So I think of it this way: if I don't work hard right now, and if I keep blaming the teacher or the person who's checked my test, I won't be able to improve. I will not study, I will not improve. But instead here, let's say I'm trying to respond. So what I'm going to think is that, okay, if I put in the hard work, if I try to understand the way in which answers are written, or the way in which this subject is studied, I will be able to score better. That way we also get a good result the next time I sit for the test. So in the second case, it was a response, not a reaction. So this was the fourth link of James Gross's model of emotional regulation. So emotional regulation, essentially what it means is, when you are faced with an event that makes you want to react badly or spontaneously, you lay back, you think, and you check out all the consequences. You give it some time, because often when we are in a mood that's really spontaneous, let's say I'm feeling intense anger or intense sadness or intense happiness, I might make decisions that might not prove really good for the whole situation in the long run. So instead I sit back and I think of everything that could go wrong or that could go right, and then I give it enough time, and then I decide how to respond. So that's how emotional regulation takes place. This was it, and I think next time I'll bring you something new about perhaps psychology or anything else that you would want me to make a video on. So this was what I came up with after having read the quote The moment you are disturbed by insult or pleased by praise, you're still a slave. This is what I came up with, and I hope you've liked it and I hope you've understood it as well. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.